Today we want to begin talking about mission, and sometimes that word gets thrown around and we're not really sure what it means. It can be confusing, it can be intimidating, and oftentimes mission, when we think about it within our faith life, it can be really frustrating. So here's a really simple definition of mission just to kick us off, okay? Mission is simply the decision that God has given you to go and offer His plans in exchange for yours. Right? So it's God's idea. God's the one who does the sending in His mission, and is offering His plans in exchange for yours. I want to read you a story from Matt. All right, he writes this: as a college student, I had very little interest in anything with the church or with Jesus in general. In fact, from the age of 12, my dream was to play college baseball, become an engineer, expand my family, and participate in the family business. I was well on my way to realizing this dream when I had made the team at a Division I school. It was my junior year of an engineering program, but my dream totally unraveled. He writes, I'll spare you the details, but in the midst of a broken engagement, I took a small step toward God for some much-needed help. For somebody who did not necessarily grow up as a church kid, in quotes, who didn't really go to youth group, and said I would never be a pastor, this was a dramatic change in my plans. It's just an example of what God's mission does in our life. It exchanges our plans for God's. There's a story in the Bible from Genesis chapter 12. You're going to read it here in a little bit. It's about a man named Abraham. He exchanges his idea for his family with his life for the plans that God has for him in a new country where God moves him, with a new community of people, friends, and family around him. But all the long, he knew and trusted that he was immersed in the promises of God. Promises that God would never leave them, forsake him. He would always be with them. And it's the same promise that you have and I have. So what are some ideas of what this mission begins to look like in your life and mine? You guys are going to make lists, and you're going to go through the Abraham story and fill out those worksheets as you discuss these different concepts on mission as we get started. But here are just some ideas as you begin to think about where God has already sent you, where He's already said for you to go. It might be a school classroom or a neighborhood. It might be your house. It might be a sports team or a music group that you're a part of, whatever it is. Here are 3 ways that you can take your first steps in following Jesus and join Him on His mission. Okay? The first one is pretty simple. It's sort of simple that it's a no-brainer. It's kind of like duh. It's crossing your fence. Just walking next door. You might have a neighbor. It might be a friend. If you don't know your neighbors, one way to be on mission where God has already placed you is simply by going over and meeting your neighbor, knowing their name. Do they have a dog? Do they like cats? Do they have fish? What do they like to do? And it's even better if they're your age or if they have little kids. It's just a whole lot of fun. The second thing to do is to take a risk, all right? This is might be a little scarier, but maybe crossing a social boundary and becoming friends with somebody who you might not naturally become a friend with at school. Or maybe it's crossing the boundary with somebody who you know disagrees with you. You might like the color green, but they like the color purple, and you guys have always fought about that, but you can still be friends. That might be another opportunity to be on mission where God has placed you. But here's a third one, okay? Here's a third one, and it might not be something that we think about, but it's crossing the barrier ethnically. People who don't look like you or talk like you, or even believe the same thing you do. This is the challenge within the Christian community. And as we sit in a room like this and we open God's Word with other people who think about Jesus in a very similar way that we do, is that we begin to lose sight of those who might not just believe in Jesus, but who might not even have the same ideas or beliefs about Jesus. Those people especially are the ones that God has said go. He has sent you into their life to, first and foremost, to be their friend, because Jesus is our friend, and so we can be friends with those who might not know who Jesus is. But most of all, to simply be the hands and feet of Jesus, to be His voice, to give His love, to remind them when their lives are broken, as you'll discover how Abraham's life is broken before God gets a hold of him. that God has the same promise to put Abraham back together, how he's put you back together, and how he can put your friend's life back together as well. Have fun in your groups. I pray that it's a really fun discussion, and we'll continue next week looking at what this begins to look like tangibly where we live, work, and play.